Hey, film fans. My name is David. This is Film Collector Archive, and today it is episode 3 of the In Discussion series. I am very excited for this third episode of the In Discussion series. Number 1, to be continuing the series, and number 2, for the guest that I have on today. This is John Mabey, who is an author and a fellow film lover. Very, very happy to have you on, John. Thank you for taking time out of your day to jump on here with me.
Oh, this is exciting, man. I mean, we get to do what we love most, talk movies.
Absolutely. And yeah, so I want to just let everyone know more about who you are. So you are now a published author. You have a book that was recently published. Do you want to maybe give us a little bit of info on that project?
Yeah, so I just real quick, it was a fun project because I got to work with Kevin J. Anderson. And for those of you who don't know who Kevin J. Anderson or can't quite recall, he's taken over writing the Dune franchise since like the late 80s. You have him to thank for like the Young Jedi and Jedi Academy series books in the 90s. Darksaber, like he's incredible. And now he's helping produce the new Dune films. So he has a program that he does where he teaches people how to get into publication, and he gets writers to write stories that go with the theme, and then he publishes an anthology based on that. And this last year he wanted to do mermaids, but he wanted to ditch the whole Ariel thing and he wanted to go dark. And so yeah, I got to work with him. I wrote a really twisted circus story about a mermaid, and it was kind of an honor because he told me that it was his favorite. Like when he read that one, he was like, done, this one goes in, period. And
Awesome.
So yeah, it was real. Oh, and it's called Merciless Mermaids, Tales from the Deep. There we go. Get all that glare on it. You'll love that.
And yeah, we love the glare. And
love
of course,
the glare.
We'll include a link to because this is available widely on Amazon and
yeah, it's everywhere. And it's just a whole collection of stories of mermaids that are just dark.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely include a link to that book. So those of you that are watching, I mean, my audience, a lot of us, I mean, I know you and I are sporting our horror t-shirts here today.
Oh yeah.
We got Eraserhead and The Shining rep here. No, my audience, we're all horror film lovers, so I think that'll do well. So definitely go check out the book. Congratulations on being a part of that. That sounds fantastic.
Thanks.
Now, for purposes of this video, again, this is episode 3 of our In Discussion series, and we are talking horror deep cuts. We're going to go over a few different films. I believe, John, you have 5 films ready to discuss.
Oh yeah.
And we're going deep cuts. Yes, pun intended, obviously. But these are going to be titles. We're not talking Texas Chainsaw. We're not talking Halloween. We're talking, films maybe that. Yeah, maybe the ones you missed, maybe the ones that aren't being widely talked about. Just trying to show, some recommendations. We're in spooky season now, so great time for this, obviously. But yeah, so I think we'll just kind of jump into it. This will be just kind of an open discussion, and so I'm gonna turn it over to you. Let you take it away.
Well, all right. So before we begin, though, I do want to run my bragging rights, if that's okay, to your audience.
Go for it.
I love that. Him and David and you and I have been talking movies for years, and I just want to say that I am the one that told you have to see Drive with Ryan Gosling, and you were like, and I was like, do it, man. I was like, you'll thank me.
Yeah,
and I just want to say that you're welcome.
And we've been talking Nicholas Winding Refn's film ever since.
So much. I follow him on Instagram, and he has the weirdest videos, and I love it. Mostly
And,
just him dancing.
well, and on the channel, I do have an unboxing video for the Second Sight 4K edition. They did the massive box set, one of the best physical media releases ever.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I think we should take the Band-Aid off right away. Like, we should just take that away first. And by Band-Aid, I would love to talk Skinamarink, particularly Kyle Edward Ball's Skinamarink. Oh, and that's one thing I want to put. There is a common theme with these 5 movies, something that it doesn't always affect the way I choose movies, but when I find out about it, it's important to me. Every single one of these movies were written and directed by the same person.
Oh, interesting.
And I love that because they have a vision as a writer, and then they get to share that vision visually with the rest of us. And that's like every writer's dream. So I love supporting people who are willing to write and film their own movies, usually on their own money and things like that, or unless they find support at Sundance. Yeah, I love it. So yes, Kyle Edward Ball, who wrote and directed Skinamarink. I can already hear it coming. All the comments.
let the comments come in.
How did you feel about Skinamarink? Well, I guess I should set the premise first for those who don't know.
Yeah.
Skinamarink, we'll just say takes place in the 80s because it has all the things there, but it doesn't really say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for those of us who grew up in the 80s and a large part of the 90s, because I have a lot of friends who've seen this and loved it too. It hit home because we've all experienced that night where the house is dark, all the lights are off, you're in the living room, you're watching TV, or it's like super early in the morning on Saturday, right? 6 a.m. Saturday morning cartoons, and the house is dark and you just have that TV light. And no matter how into the show you are, you always just have that sense in the back of your head that there is something in that darkness behind you. Something just over that couch. Like and this captures that fantastically. Having a playroom with the TV in there. And the story is 2 siblings who this is their life until things get a little dark. Almost what's the trend now? The rooms, the back rooms. Has kind of a, do you know about the back rooms trend? Totally look into it, you'll love it. The back rooms trend is this idea that a space you're in extends for like ever. And you might be able to find a way out, or you might be trapped in the back rooms. Like if you've ever, for me, been like in an office building and you're walking through cubicles after cubicles and you cannot find the door. That kind of like, where in the world am I? It's that kind of feel. And I think Skinamarink captures the back rooms feel flawlessly.
Interesting.
So you have to look into that. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, and I'll kind of jump in here, and yeah, just to further proof that I've seen the film. Yeah, I did purchase this one. Kind of.
I love that cover. I love that poster.
Immediately. I mean, it's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you are on this one. I mean, there was something there was something oddly nostalgic about it.
Yeah.
If that can be, it feels weird saying you're nostalgic about a film you've seen once, but I mean, just the setting, you know, for me, I mean, it spoke to a very specific kind of a time and place. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but the thing that I identified with most with Skinamarink was just, I love film and cinema as more than just you know, kind of straight story. Sometimes cinema is more, or you know, film is more of a you know, communicating a feeling and an atmosphere than it is, you know, just telling a straight story, you know, A to Z. And that's what just really clicked with me with Skinamarink, was how I felt watching the film more than anything else.
Some of my favorite video games, particularly horror, like for your crowd, the game Visage, which I would highly recommend for Halloween.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
By Sad Square Studios. Visage is incredible. But it starts out with a note that says, basically, we're not holding your hand. Figure it out. And it just drops you in the middle of this, and the story unfolds as you go through.
Very
that's how
creepy.
I feel. Yeah, that's how I feel about Skinamarink. I think that's why you hit it right on talking about the story thing, because I think because I know a lot of people struggle with Skinamarink, and I think the issue is that there is no clear story. It starts out with these two kids, and there's a lot of clips of like a hallway with just the one, nightlight on and toys on the floor, and just records that for a while, and you hear sounds. And for me, that creeps me out, because there's nothing creepier than a scene somewhere else in a building or in a house where it's empty, and you're kind of seeing what's going on when people aren't there. Like, sure, the kids are down the hall or down the stairs in the room. What's going on in their room upstairs when they're off playing? Like, and sometimes nothing happens, and then sometimes but it doesn't hold your hand. Like, there is a very clear story there, or it's not clear because you have to wait for it, but there's a story there, and they give it to you just piece by piece as you travel on this journey with these kids. And so it is a movie that does, I don't want to say patience quite, but it does require some patience. I never felt bored. I never felt out of patience, but you watch it, and I admit, even towards the beginning, I was like, it wasn't, what is this about? It was, what is this going to become? And then when it showed itself, man, it was dark.
Okay, so I want to kind of poke and prod there a little bit. For someone who is a writer, what is, I mean, because it for me, I mean, it just felt like story was secondary. So as a writer, I mean, you obviously enjoyed the film. What are your thoughts on maybe where story is secondary and atmosphere is first?
So I write cinematically, which is exactly like it sounds. It's a little more, some people are like, oh, that's just literary, but what it is the way I set up scenes and things like that. So for me, there's a very strong story. It's very clear because it has to be for readers, but I am all about atmosphere. I am all about setting the tone, everything. And I think Skinamarink did that incredibly well. And it did. It was more important than the story. And I think that kind of raised the shock value of the story. If you pay attention and you realize what's going on, you're already immersed in this world with kids and toys and late night cartoons, all these things that we hold dear and safe. And then all of a sudden they dump on you this threat. And it's ironically a threat I think we all kind of were afraid of, whether it's the boogeyman or just that moment when you're looking towards the stairs and you just know there's something at the top of the stairs in that darkness looking down at you.
And Will, as hard as this is we're going to try and keep this as spoiler free as possible. But I'm saying that more for myself because I just want to talk.
I could go forever on this.
But absolutely, I absolutely agree with where you're going with your comments.
I think for viewers who struggle with it, a lot of them just didn't finish it, or they just kind of like, at like, the 30-minute mark, they're like, whatever. I would say rewatch it, turn off all the lights in the house, and just immerse yourself in it, and just let it happen. Yeah, you can't. They have subtitles sometimes because you can't understand what's being said. For me, that only adds to the mystery. The room is dark, it's murky, you can barely see what's going on, and you can hear this voice, and then when it tells you what it's saying, I mean, just it's terrifying.
Hairs on the back of my neck are standing up.
Yeah, it's so. And then I just, my only drawback with it is I feel like it kind of pulled the Lord of the Rings Return of the King. It's got like, 5 endings type thing, where you're like, that's the end, and then the next thing you're like, oh, but man, they just kept like every ending. It's like, and worse and worse, and then that final shot, which I'm gonna say nothing about. I have like done everything. I have taken pictures of the final shot and photo edited it to try and like, I don't know, scare myself more. And they did such a phenomenal job. It just always remains that final shot. Fantastic.
Well, yeah, I agree again with everything you're saying here. I had an interesting experience with it because I watched it with my 15-year-old.
Yeah.
First time I was seeing it. So I've seen it once.
Me too, by the way. I watched it with my 15-year-old the first time I saw it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we watched it together.
We're on level playing field here. So this is a Shudder original.
Right.
We watched it on Shudder. And I think your I think your daughter had the same experience. It completely landed for my son.
Yeah, absolutely, for my daughter.
I mean, it was like we couldn't stop talking about it afterwards. We were talking about it the next day. We were talking through some of the shots in the film, and what was the most unsettling to you? Oh, I loved this. Oh, I loved this. So that was really cool for me because it was a kind of a shared, an experience with my son, and that he was able to. We're able to watch these types of films together and have discussions. And for me, it was a discussion driver type of film because it's not, it's not, just so, I guess, straightforward in its presentation. It's just very ambiguous. I mean, in so many ways.
Right. And that's another thing I think that, I think a lot of moviegoers have lost is the ability to just absorb and enjoy. Like social media, everything, it's like 60 seconds and it has to get to the point immediately.
Sure.
And I think we've lost some ability to wonder. I mean, it was Stephen King who talked about when people were like, you don't explain your magic system. You don't explain why these monsters exist. And he's like, why? He's like, think about it. If like you went home and suddenly there's a clown crawling out of your drain and he kills you, what does it matter? Like,
yeah,
or it's chasing you down the street and you're screaming for help. What does it matter?
Yeah.
Nothing matters about where it came from because it has completely broken all bounds of reality, and you just have to accept this is real. And
sure.
He said that's reality. Reality never hands you the answers.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have forgotten that with all of these quick to the point, and even with like branding, they're like, you got to get to the point. Everything has to be explained. And I mean, even as a writer in fantasy, a lot of fantasy fans have gotten really rabid when they read a book that does not like step by step explain the magic system and just expects you to just believe for a minute. And I think that is what Skinamarink does. It allows you to wonder.
Yeah.
And it for me anyway, and for my daughter, it taps into so when we grow up, we all lose the ability to play, right? Like we play with dinosaurs and we can totally imagine them and we are immersed and we could like spend 2 hours with the T-Rex and Triceratops playing out things. And I kind of felt like I got a little bit of that back watching Skinamarink in a sense. That childlike wonder, and I was like, man, I want to watch cartoons. Like, where are my toys?
Yeah.
I have toys, but they're adult toys now. Wait, no. You know what I mean? So internet explodes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it totally brought back my kind of like childlike sense of wonder because I allowed myself to just be with the kids in the movie and just experience it as they experience it. and just let it happen. And man, it was cool experience.
Yeah. One, you know, added, you know, not required, but like you and I grew up in the 80s and the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something that felt, you know, my son didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s, and he had an amazing time with it. But there's something that felt so directed at me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I felt spoken to. I felt seen. It was
yeah,
weird.
yeah. I can't quite, you know, quantify exactly what I mean by that, but there was something that felt it felt like, you know, maybe I had kind of ownership over part of that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
I'm hoping he does more. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing what else he does.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I'm curious.
So I'm glad you brought that one up. It'll be interesting to see comments and definitely on each of these films. I mean, you know, let us know in the comments what you think about the films we're talking about. I'm interested
and full respect if you didn't like it. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But
100%.
Give it a second try. Just let go and just sit there and just experience it.
Yep, I totally agree. So great pick on your first one there.
All right, my second one. This one was an accident. I was at this random, like, you know, curiosity shop that's just full of just creepy things, occult things, dead people things, attic things, and they had this rabbit, and I was like, that is the stuffed rabbit, like a stuffed animal, and I was like, that is the gnarliest thing I've ever seen, and way out of my price range because it was handmade and all this stuff. But I wanted to get one because if I could turn my screen around, you would see the craziest collection of like movie memorabilia, creepy, you know, like, for example, this little statue I found under in the back of a cabinet. Like, I can't remember, it was in a corner, like completely forgotten. And it's just this lady that's stained. And we took it up to the checkout lady and we're like, we want to buy this. And she saw it and she goes, oh, where did you find that? And I was like, you know, in your basement in the corner. And she's like, oh, and you want to get it? And I was like, yes.
Oh,
she's
funny.
like, okay. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's gonna kill me tonight, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so with the bunny, I was doing the same kind of thing. I was like, I want this bunny. And all of a sudden I came across this image of a ratty stuffed animal bunny that's like a wind-up bunny about this big, playing the drums, and it has this look in its eyes that is just like, it just wants to kill you. Just like, it's so angry at you, right? It's not something you're gonna put in your baby's room. And I was like, that's cool. That led me to the film it's based from, which is called Caveat, also written and directed by Damien McCarthy. I showed this to my daughter, and she has two movies that, as a horror fan, that she has trouble rewatching, and we'll talk about both of them tonight. But right now, Caveat freaked her out. Like, she was okay, don't get me wrong, she'd watch it again, but it had, like, here's the premise of Caveat. There's a gentleman who, it just starts with, you can tell he's down on his luck, maybe he's homeless, you're not sure, and he's riding with a man, apparently his friend, his friend. And his friend says, hey, I've got some work for you. My niece lives in this empty house on an island. This is in Europe, and they own the island, and she is kind of mentally deranged. Both her parents died in horrific ways, and someone needs to watch her. And I was wondering if you wouldn't watch her for the next couple of days until I can get over there and clear things up. And he's like, and the guy's like, and he's like, you know, for money, because you need it. So the main character's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then his friend goes, but there's a caveat. And I'm not going to spoil what that caveat is, but it makes staying in this house very difficult. And it's kind of a shocking caveat, but the way the character handles it, I consider to be completely realistic, because when he hears the caveat, he goes, nope, I'm out, bye. And he's like, not going to do it. And the guy, you know, manages to convince him using money and stuff, and he's like, all right, he's like, but I've got like my own rules. And so then the movie takes place in this, they did such a good job, it is such a dark, decrepit house. It is creepy beyond belief. Probably one of the creepiest haunted houses I've ever seen, and the girl in there is no less disturbing. This movie has scene setups, like scares or creepy moments, that I have never seen. I mean, there are a lot of moments where you're like, I saw that coming. It wasn't necessarily a jump scare, but an atmosphere thing. Doesn't matter. It's so well done, and it builds up to, and I'm not spoiling anything here, but it builds up to the rabbit and a basement. That rabbit toy with a drum and a basement. And the events that happen in that basement leading up to the end have some of the best horror vibes and moments I've seen. I haven't seen in movies in a while. Like real under your skin moments. None of that right in your face quick scare and then you're like, oh, okay. We're talking about like, as you watch this build, you can like, you see it coming, and it's slowly, like a stranger in an alley, slowly walking towards you. It's just, whew. And that rabbit, man, if I can find that prop, I will buy that prop.
So you're introducing me to Caveat.
Oh yeah,
I've not seen this film before.
There's so much. Oh God, there's so much to this. I kind of feel like I need to tell you the caveat because it happens in like the first 15 minutes, but it's so fun to hear the guy explain the caveat, and you're just like, what? Don't do it, man. And then when he's like, I'm not gonna do that, man. That's stupid. You're just like, wow. I actually wrote an intelligent character. like, man, this guy may last. I don't know. It's a smart flick. Like, it's a really smart, intelligent thriller. Definitely horror. I mean, I say thriller, but it is a solid horror. If you like really dark, flickering hallways, scratches, at the door. I mean, all the classic haunted house stuff is present here, but it is unnerving because you can't tell the difference between actually someone in the house or someone supernatural. And the reveal is solid. And so this was an indie film. It's actually, I believe. Sorry, I actually have all my facts and I can't remember. That's right. It's Hindsight Films production. It is actually an Irish horror film, to be specific. Came out in 2020. So
2020. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so their accents are delicious.
Yeah.
Came out October 4th, 2020, and it's fantastic. It's hard talking about some of these without giving the goods away because they're so good.
Yeah,
they're so good, but it will make you fear basements and stuffed animals again.
That's one of the things I have such a hard time talking about film and not just wanting to dive in kind of all the way. All of the elements you're discussing there, I mean, this is going on my watch list on Letterboxd. I'll be watching this.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it sets itself apart from other like haunted house movies or whatever, is it has a completely original premise. There's nothing even close to it. And I will tell you, because it's not really a spoiler, but the movie starts with the girl interacting with the bunny. And it's like the first 5 minutes of the movie. And by the time that first 5 minutes end and it does the opening titles, there is no doubt in your mind that you are in for a sick ride. Just the first 5 minutes is just so well done. I've actually watched the first 5 minutes a couple times just to, like, as a writer, because it's just so well done.
Oh yeah, you have those bits as a writer. I'm sure that you go back to just to get that inspiration.
Absolutely.
I have scenes that I jump to all the time. I'll pop in a disc and watch specific scenes for that very reason. So I totally understand that. that speaks a lot to the film, I think.
Yeah, and there is, I will say this, it's not really a spoiler, you might feel like it, but there is a body in this movie, because it's a horror movie, so there are dead things. That is, so I used to design haunted houses for a long time. Work at and design, in Colorado, Utah, California. I love doing that. And that body, if I go back into haunted housing, I will completely recreate that entire setup, because it's it's so cool. Oh my gosh, I want to tell you guys so much about it. You have to watch Caveat, and then I'd want to know what you guys think.
Well, you've sold me on it, and I'm sure we'll have a discussion about it after I watch it.
All right. My next one.
Yeah.
This one's by the way, sorry, I forgot to tell you. I actually I had this all down. So Caveat, I know is on Apple, if you have Apple or any where you buy movies, it's totally available digitally, as is of course Skinamarink. I think Caveat's on Hulu. I have to double check.
Oh, perfect.
I know Skinamarink is going to be on Hulu October for Halloween. But I think Caveat is on Hulu. It was on Prime for a while. In fact, I think it is still on Prime. So ways you can watch it, because some of these movies are very hard to find, particularly the next one, The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Leigh. First thing I'm going to say about this movie, just to rip the Band-Aid off, they really suck at making covers. Every poster I have seen for this movie, I'm just like, really? Doesn't convey the movie. One, whoever's their marketer should be fired. Doesn't convey the movie at all, and just isn't scary. The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Leigh is a haunted house movie, but it isn't scary in turn the corner, ghost jump scare. The house itself is a character in this movie. So this is the movie my daughter refuses to rewatch. As much as she's a Deadite, she is an Evil Dead fan. This movie got so under her skin, she won't rewatch it. It is, on the other hand, though, it is my wife's favorite horror movie of all time.
Oh wow!
So yeah, so it's actually by Rue Morgue Pictures.
Okay.
It's one of their early ones. It came out in 2012. And it's by Rodrigo. I'm going to mess up his name. I'm so sorry, Rodrigo Godinho. Well, maybe I got it right. Yeah, Rodrigo Godinho. Anyway, he's brilliant. I love you, man. Please don't be mad. It stars Jake Kosolecki. Did you ever see The Empty Man?
No, I'm aware of the film. I have not.
Okay. He's also in that. He is the opening person, and he's a fantastic actor. The premise of the story: this man, his wife dies, or his mother dies, and he is going to her house, back to her house where he grew up and stuff, to basically, figure out what to do with it. Her house is so cool. It is the coolest, creepiest collection of everything. It's like a junk museum. She's got broken dolls and carriages along the hallway. She's got all these crazy, scary religious icons. The house is the character. It's amazing. And the cinematography of going through the house, and they shuffle through things, and you see the dolls come by, and you're just that doll's gonna freaking blink. I know it. It is fantastic. And as he's there, he starts going through, he starts being triggered, because it turns out that his mom was part of a very kind of psychotic religious cult. And there's iconography all over the house, and you start getting voiceovers and flashbacks of him remembering how difficult it was living here under his mom's thumb, or more specifically under the cult's thumb. And you have that combined with the house, and then they just come together. And as he's working through this trauma and these memories and touring the house and trying to figure things out, he starts getting an idea of how his mom may have died. And there is this, the house is insane. Like in her bedroom, and this is a real house, by the way. I watched the filming of this. In her bedroom is a staircase that goes down. It's like by her bed. It goes down into this open worship like room that you can't get to anywhere else in the house, only through this staircase. And they would go down there as this cult, and they would do their worship. And some of the most under your skin frightening moments have to do with that room. It's not gory, by the way. In fact, every movie we've talked about, none of them are gory so far. They're not slasher films. These are movies these are the ones that really keep you up at night. These are the ones that, whether because you're freaked out or because you're thinking about it, you're mulling it over. These are thinking films that have that burrow a little deeper than just skin level.
Yeah,
it's really great. And so this one, I've shown it to several friends. They all loved it, but there's about 2 of them that are just like, I won't watch that again. And it's not because you just have to watch it. For some people, it just taps a nerve, and they're just like, whoa, like maybe it hits a little too close to home. That's part of the reason why I love it. The writing, the emotions, his struggle to understand his mother, and while the house is doing its thing, is really well done. And moving. Like, there are definitely emotional parts. But I will tell you this, for everyone watching it, there is a scene where he is on the phone with his therapist that has gone down in history with my social circles as being like one of the most intense scenes in horror movies. I can't say more than that, unfortunately, but I'm telling you, like, he's on his phone with his therapist, and everybody in the room is biting their nails on the edge of their seat, and it's so good. This is hard.
I'm going to be, you and I are going to be done filming, and I'm going to be up for the next 24 hours watching these films.
And I will tell you, the ending is a shocker. It's not, you couldn't have predicted it if you tried. There is nothing predictable about this movie at all. That's the other reason I love it. Like they set up, like, they're so brilliant because they set up a lot of the classic horror scenes, and you're like, oh yeah, I know what's happening, and they kind of let it happen, and then they go left, and you're like, whoa, holy cow. And it's good. It's really good. I don't know if we're talking horror movies, so your audience probably doesn't care about like too much about warnings, right? Like trigger warnings and stuff. Like, that's not a for writers, it's important. So,
if you want to give that info, that's great.
I mean, with this one, I'll just say, no, there's no. I mean, honestly, my daughter, it just freaked her out because it was so well done. She admitted that. She's like, it's one of the few horror movies that just really got me there. So, yeah. So I guess there's no warning. I mean, it deals with kind of like parent abuse and obviously being in a cult. So, but most people I've seen that hasn't been a problem.
Yeah.
And they handle it really well. And then, like I said, the ending, it changes everything. Yeah. Like, you go through this whole journey, and then you see that ending, and you just sit back and go, whoa, wait. And I've of course rewatched it many times since then with the understanding, and it's cool. It's just cool.
You said this is 2012?
2012. Okay. 2012, I believe. And it's available, it is available digitally. And on Prime. That's right, it's on Prime. Yeah. Last I checked was like a couple weeks ago. So it's on Prime, and it is available digitally.
And I'm sure my audience were physical media collectors. So I'm sure.
So as much as I'm a collector like you guys, I'm here more as like, I think you and I have talked about this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the movie guy. Not that you aren't, but you know what I mean? Like I'm the one that goes to theater, sits down, and then texts you and be like, you need to see this.
Yeah.
And then you're the one that comes to me and says, you need to get this box set.
Yeah.
Like, I think we kind of complete each other on both ends.
Yep. We've had
Like,
many discussions.
I start it, you finish it. Like, you
Yeah.
know, it's pretty awesome. So all of these I have seen available on, like, you know, Blu-ray, digital. I know Caveat Rue Morgue had talked about doing a special edition of Caveat. I really hope so.
Yeah.
I would love it if it like came with a bunny head or something. Hello, little keychain. Give me the keychain.
Yeah, yeah.
You're all gonna fall in love with the bunny. Like the bunny is hilariously frightening.
Yeah.
So moving on. Obviously, religion's a theme here. I'm realizing. The Vigil, 2019, written and directed by Keith Thomas. If The Exorcist and, I mean, pretty much any movie like that is like it's like, you know, Catholic based.
Mm-hmm.
This is Jewish based. I love movies that teach me about other cultures or drop me into particularly horror that drop me into another culture where I get to learn about their demons and their monsters and see them. Fantastic. I love it. The Vigil is about a young man who he's former Orthodox Jew. So he's left that neighborhood and the strict rules and everything, and he's actually in a therapy group for people who are transitioning from being an Orthodox Jew to whatever they're turning into, whatever they want to become, and just helps them, you know, cut some of the ties from some of the practices and try to find, like, there's a funny scene with a girl flirting with him and he's like I have no idea what to do. And he's formerly a shoima, which a shoima is someone who they can be paid, hired, or it can be someone local, but they have to be practiced. Their job is to sit with the body overnight while they wait for the mortuary to come the next morning, and basically keep it company and protect it from demons. Real thing. And so he's a former shoima, and you know, he's kind of down on his luck. Another story about a person. Actually, they're all down on their luck in every single movie. You know, you never see like a really successful rich person being in a horror movie unless they're the horror, like American Psycho. But these guys he's down on his luck, and so his former associates from his old neighborhood come to him and say, hey, we have this woman, she really needs a shoima, we can't get anybody. They're also trying to get him to come back, and so they're like, you know, come back, you can do prayers with us in the morning, you'll love it. And he's like, I need the money. He's like, I'll do it. And I've seen this a lot in movies, shoimas and stuff, and it's always very cool. This is the first time where I've ever seen a movie where they show you why the shoima's there, and the dangers that they believe that they're against. And so this is another this is The Exorcist for the Jewish community, is basically what this is. And as he goes through this, the house, the setup and lighting in this house is wonderfully deliciously dark. There is one particularly horrific scene of someone quickly running upstairs, and it's like 5-6 steps up the stairs and then just darkness, and you just see the feet, and that's it, and then just nothing, and then just silence. And oh man, and it's cool because it teaches you about the mazik, which is I think it's found in Hebrew, it's called Talmud. We can get into that another time. But he's this particular demon that latches on to grief. So this is another movie about a character who has gone through a traumatic experience, and is working through it, and then has to deal with this demon who can smell his grief. And it's so cool. So he's trying to be modern, right? He's trying to live his life, get away from the orthodox living, be more modern. He has a phone now, but he's trying to figure out how to use it. They do this really cool juxtaposition of he's in this old house with really old, family heirloom Jewish things, and it's just very old feeling. But then when he gets on his phone, they have room for like the text bubbles to show up.
Okay.
And it's really cool because it puts him in this place of being stuck between the old traditional world and the new world. And then the demon just kind of crushes those together. And oh man, it's cool. There are, and of course, let me remind you, the entire movie, he's babysitting a body that's laying in the living room. So I'm sure you can imagine there are all kinds of scares that happen with that, and that's not even the threat. So
interesting,
amazing movie. And it, and there's a story there. Like there is his journey as well as understanding the person he's watching, the body, and why there's this demon in the house and what that means. I learned a lot as a writer about, the Jewish Orthodox and stuff, because it's whole cast, everything. It was a very much a genuine movie. Like this was a true Jewish horror movie, and you don't see those. I've actually never seen a Jewish horror movie. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't think of any. If they're out there, please let us know. I'd love to see them. This is the first one I've ever seen that is like, hey, here's what they believe. We've seen The Exorcist, we've seen Satan, we've seen, all the, I keep hitting this and the stars are like, and all those things, but I have never seen a movie that takes a brand new monster, a brand new creature from a religion that I don't fully personally understand, and makes it relevant to me. It's very cool. Very good movie. It was 2019, I believe.
2019 for that one.
And that was actually Blumhouse.
Oh, Blumhouse, nice.
But it just won tons of like festival awards and everything, but for whatever reason it just theaters, it just didn't get the full release that I think I did. It was distributed by IFC Midnight, but it was the production company was Blumhouse.
Okay. Yeah, IFC Midnight, and I've got some items on my shelf from them. I'm wearing my Shining shirt. Room 237, that documentary. I know they distributed that.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say that one of the things that I do love about film is learning about different cultures. I'm a big world cinema guy.
Yeah.
And you kind of marry that, like, different cultures with horror, and there's kind of this catharsis across cultures, because horror for me is a very cathartic tool and experience, and to be able to, I love horror films from different cultures. The Babadook popped in my head.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, yeah, that sounds like a really intriguing title.
It's just a new take on horror. Like, there are things where you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of like The Exorcist, because it is. Because it also shows the similarities between these beliefs and how similar they are.
Yeah.
They didn't copy The Exorcist at all. This isn't The Exorcist.
Yeah.
It's certainly not as depraved as The Exorcist is. I agree with you. Part of the reason why I watch movies isn't just, it's not entertainment, it's an experience. And I like it when I walk away from a movie and I'm like, I learned something new. I experienced something new.
Yeah.
And so for me, The Vigil was a horror movie that it was new. like I was experiencing all kinds of new things, and it was just so cool. It's a really good movie, and I believe it is on Hulu.
Okay.
So, as well as, digital, all that. But I believe it is streaming on Hulu. I would say, though, as cool as it is to stream and stuff, always, like what you do, I appreciate that. Always support the directors and everybody who put this together, and buy a hard copy when you can.
Yeah.
But I know with a lot of these movies, people want to, watch it first and see.
But, yeah, I mean, and that's why I love streaming. I'm very much, pro physical media, but I love streaming as a tool to be able to preview titles I pick up. And so, yeah, I'll be looking all these up, and as I'm sure a lot of the viewers will as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, my hope is that all of these movies, but particularly The Vigil, my hope is that they do treat it as well as it deserves to be treated, with like a box set or special editions. Like, these are movies that got overlooked because they don't fit the mainstream.
Yeah.
And which is why they're so great. And I just hope that their studios give them the treatment they deserve, because man, these are gold.
Well, and we're living in a time, not to go off the rails here, but as physical media collectors, we're living in a really, really cool time, because there's so many boutique labels out there that are picking up those titles that you're talking about, the less seen, maybe not as well, distributed or whatnot. We have a lot of boutique labels that are doing, amazing work with things
awesome
like that.
stuff.
Yeah, so I'm hoping, my hope is to shed light on these lesser seen titles, get them in the discussion, and then you never know. I mean, we have so many films coming out now, by these labels that, they were kind of categorized as, never will get a physical release, and there's, amazing work being done. So you never know.
Yeah. And that's something I do want to tell your audience. Like, these aren't movies that were overlooked or missed because the acting's bad, or because they're like a trauma film that has a very specific following,
No Toxic Avenger here.
Hey, I just heard they're remaking that, right?
Yeah.
No Toxic Avenger. And there's nothing wrong with Trauma. I love Trauma.
Yeah.
It has its own place. No, these are movies that were overlooked because the studio releasing it didn't prioritize it, because these are all very indie films. These are written, directed, a lot of the actors are like people they know, but the acting in all of these is superb. It really is, especially in Vigil. Well, actually in all of them, but in Vigil, the main character, he does such a phenomenal job showing how he's torn apart between these two worlds and trying to remain strong, but realizing that in his own world there are dangers that actually existed that he thought were just fairy tales. And all these movies are kind of fairy tales, actually. Now that I say that is the running theme. When you watch them, they all have a little bit of a fantasy element to it, like that wonder. Not fantasy like unicorns, but like wonder. It's not just a guy wielding an axe. It's like it taps into your imagination. It's really good.
Yeah. All
right, my final film, I don't believe has a box set or a digital release at all. This one's for fun. Although I would like it if you proved me wrong and found one, because I would buy it in a heartbeat. So that's your job.
I'll be on it.
You figure that out. Everyone's gonna love this one. Okay, so it's Alice 1988 is what it's referred to in the cult circles, because this movie has a cult following. Alice 1988 is check this out. It is a Czechoslovakian film.
Okay.
So, back when we had Czechoslovakia.
Back when that was a thing.
When that was a thing. 1988 is when it came out, obviously. And so that was right on the cusp, because I think it was 92 or 93 that whole thing happened. So it was right there.
Yeah.
It is subtitled. And the only place that I can find and I'm sure you and your audience could probably find it elsewhere. Again, let me know, because that is your thing and you're good at that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's only on YouTube, and I mean, it's good quality, but you can tell it's old reel that it's showing. It is Alice in Wonderland, his take on Alice in Wonderland. And it's terrifying. Because,
and sorry, did you say who? So
I'm sorry. Yes,
this is another writer slash director.
Written and directed by, and I'm gonna mess his name up.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry, man.
Yeah,
Jan Svankmajer.
Okay.
Or Svankmajer. That might be right, actually. Jan Svankmajer. Anyway, and it's so delicious because Alice is a real girl. Everything else is stop motion taxidermy. No, stop motion taxidermy. The opening scene of her being in Wonderland, when it happens, pardon me, the opening scene is her looking at a glass, at a little box that has like a rabbit mid-run, like taxidermy, and their eyes are horrific because they don't have normal animal eyes. They have like the glass human eyes.
Yeah.
And it starts ripping its paws, the nails out of the wood where its paws are, and ripping the nails out, and then like ripping open its insides and shoving back sawdust in, and then scurries off. And she's not, obviously, but it's all stop motion. And again, all taxidermy. And it's so freaky. Like, it's not like there's no jump scares or anything like that. It is just, you watch it and you're just like by the end of the movie, you realize that you're still holding the first piece of popcorn and you never put it in your mouth because you're just like, what the? Like, it's cool.
You got me with, I put my hands up. I'm such a huge fan of stop motion and mixed media.
That's what this is.
Oh, I mean, that just immediately, for me in particular, that immediately grabs me.
It's kind of why I saved that, because I know.
Yeah.
Oh man, and the sets are very simple. Like in the Queen's Garden, they're just like your standard like play slide, like in a play, with the slides coming in and stuff.
Yeah.
And the girl's a brat. Like Alice, she's a total brat. Like, she deserves everything that happens to her in this movie. But that's what makes it so great, is she's this total brat, and she's just looking at all these horrific taxidermy animals going around, and just awful things happening to her. And visually, there are so many cool visuals because it's all homemade.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job. There's so many moments where you just want to applaud them. You're like, that was ingenious. Like, the way they created that was very cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just came into my it came into my circle because I was reaching out and I was like, hey guys, I'm looking for a really, like, this was a long time ago. I was like, I'm writing some stuff and I'm just looking for something that's a little twisted and, kind of obscure, like something I hadn't seen before. And someone just goes, Alice 1988. And that's all they said.
Just go to the 80s.
Yeah, right. Alice 1988 surrealist dark fantasy. It is. Every time, like, it's one of those movies where, like, when you have a party and people are over and you're like, hey, have you guys seen Alice 1988? And everyone's like, no. And you're like, put it on the TV. And everyone's just like,
so is this one that follows the Alice storyline? Like, is it enough that you're going to be able to identify with, like, oh, this is the Alice story?
If you know the Alice in Wonderland story, even though they might skip some things, or there's a whole mix of things, but if you know the Alice in Wonderland story, you're not gonna have a problem with this. And I mean, it does have subtitles because it's in Czech, but that's not a problem at all. It's just the horror of how he decided to portray the animals. It's not good taxidermy either. That's what's so great about it.
Yeah.
It's not like, that's a good, taxidermied bunny. That is a bunny. Like, it's like he went to one of those old, like, roadside pioneer museums or something that has, like, the deer, the taxidermy deer and stuff to show you what the wildlife is, but they're dusty. The fur's kind of like got holes in it, and like maybe it's even missing an eye and it's all puckered.
Yeah,
that's this.
Oh, okay.
You're in that museum, and all of a sudden, all the animals are breaking their nails and shattering the glass and coming at you.
Well, see, because I'm a, and you know this about me, I'm an enormous fan of animation, stop motion. I've really been getting into Hungarian animation as of late. So this
interesting.
So this feels like a perfect recommendation for me because I'm trying to get my feelers out there for, animation, stop motion, whatever from different countries. So
and it's free.
Yeah.
It's free on YouTube. So
yeah. I'd probably be embarrassed to tell you how many films I actually watch on YouTube because it's such an archive of like made for TV movies, especially. Like there's so much that's on YouTube. If that's how you need to watch it, and that's how you get access to it, that's how you get access to it.
I mean, we don't have blockbusters anymore. That's kind of the only way. There are some movies that make me really sad. I'm like, you can't watch it any other way because they never released it in physical form, and no one's streaming it. So there's no way you can watch it. You can't go down to your, grocery store VHS rental or Blockbuster. Like you got to find it somewhere. And YouTube sometimes is the only way. Although I love it when they're like, watch this movie, and you're like, yay, and you hit play, and it's like 2 hours of green screen that says go to this site and get scammed and watch this movie. And I'm like, do they really have to do that for 2 hours?
Or they'll have like the studio intro screen or something playing on repeat, but like click the link to get here.
Or I love it when it's like fast forwarded to where you can almost you can just barely understand what they're saying, and it's just like, and you're just like, well, thank you for that.
Probably what I see most on YouTube are horror films and made for TV, like 70s and 80s stuff that I go seeking after. But YouTube, again, I mean, that's the way to see some of these films. Great. So what do we have? 5. So there's 5 recommendations.
So Skinamarink.
Yep.
We have Skinamarink. We have I'm not even gonna do them in order. The Vigil, The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lay, and dude, come on, what was the last one we just did? Oh yeah, Caveat. Oh my gosh, so sorry, buddy. and then Alice 1988.
Alice 1988.
That one again. He may have meant it in somewhat of a horror way. I don't know how he couldn't have, the way he did some of the things, but I would say not inherently a horror movie, but because of how it's done and everything, totally fantastic creep vibes and some of the most creepy stop motion I've ever seen. I love it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the ball on this one. You drove, most of this conversation because out of those 4, I've only seen Skinamarink. So you've given me some great recommendations. Yeah, no, and that's, that's one of the things I love about this community is we love giving recommendations. I mean, I'm on, and why I love, like Letterboxd and things like that. I love getting recommendations. So, no, I really appreciate you giving us. Giving us those titles. I know I'm going to probably have all these watched, within the next, this coming week.
Awesome. And that's my thing is I love, and it doesn't even have to be horror. Like I love sharing obscure horror particularly that, but obscure movies with people. I love sharing those movies that I find that I'm like, this was really overlooked, and for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's prejudice, other times it's like when you do your research, it's kind of amazing when you find out why a really solid movie didn't get the attention it needed, and it's usually not fair reason why. And sometimes it's just this one had Scarlett Johansson, this one didn't, and that's a shame. So I'm glad we're going back to theaters. I mean, I've been going this whole time, but I'm glad that's a thing. And I'm glad that the strike has ended for the writers. Yay.
Yep, we got to write. Yeah,
We're not on strike anymore, but the actors still are, so we'll see.
Hot topic these last several months, especially.
Yeah, so that's great because I was really concerned. One, because being on strike, it sucks, but two, because I was worried about the longevity of good cinema. Like, I don't want another 5 years of just really bad movies and TV.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody does. So I'm glad that they finally realize how important their writers are to them. And especially in cases like these, where they're writer and director. I know there's a couple of movies on here that didn't get what they needed because of the promotion that they needed because of prejudices one way or another. So I'm happy to talk about movies that people need to see that isn't on their radar, and it's not their fault that it's not.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And you know, I'd like to turn it over to those of you watching the video as well. Let us know in the comments some of your, we're talking, you know, deep cut horror, lesser seen horror. Let us know in the comments some of your recommendations. I know John and I watch a lot of films, and so we'd like recommendations from you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be interesting to see where that conversation goes. Now, I will again. Can you show your book one more time?
Yeah.
I'll add the link for Merciless Mermaids in the video description, and I'll point people towards you if you know, to socials or anything like that. And if you're new to this channel, maybe this is your first time viewing a video on this channel, and you like talking film collecting, if you like, you know, discussions on, you know, in this case, lesser seen horror films, I invite you to hit the subscribe button. Also, the like button, that does help videos on the channel. And then lastly, the bell icon, that'll let you know when I upload new videos in the future. And John, one last thank you to you for coming on the channel today.
Thank you for having me. Like, this was an honor to be able to be here and share this with people. Like, I love it. This is fantastic. Thank you. Like, really, this was so fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again. Come up with an excuse to do another video.
Christmas is coming. We'll just do more horror movies.
Yeah, and endless more 80s stop motion creepy stuff. We'll go with a video just on that.
Oh, absolutely. California raisins, man.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I got that right back there.
I know you do.
But until next time, John and I hope you're able to watch a lot of great films.